Hi, John. Thank you for being here.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here speaking with you. Yeah, I'm glad that you decided to pick one of my VR pieces for your festival, and I hope I can remember it well enough to be able to talk about it.
It's from 2016, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, 2016.
Okay, there's something I need to tell you that's the most amazing audio work that I ever tried on like a 360 video. Even now,
Wow.
and even later, I never experienced something that's so good. So, and I know the video for I think 4 years. The first time I tried it was on Rain Dance Festival in London,
Yeah, yeah.
and since then I was waiting for an opportunity to showcase the video. So I'm very, very, very excited and happy.
Well, thank you very much. And it's been great seeing the response to it.
Okay. So what inspired the creation of this work?
So I come from a music background as a music producer and sound designer, and I got into VR probably in 2015 when I moved to Los Angeles from London. And at that time, I was working with various creative agencies and video production companies, and nobody really understood what 3D sound was and how it could work in VR. And I realized at that time that there wasn't really a good example that I could show them of how this worked. So I came up with the idea. I thought, what could we do to create a VR piece where there was sound all around us, and perhaps the environment changes as well, so we feel immersed in a different environment, because I think this is what 3D sound is really good for. So that was the initial inspiration, and I was actually working on a film location with a company called The Mill, who do a lot of visual effects, and I was speaking to them after a long day shooting. And I told them about the idea. I was just, saying, yeah, I think it'd be really cool to make this kind of VR piece where you have, a musician all around you, and this environment changing. You can hear the different types of sound and reverb. And they said, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. And then 2 weeks later, they called me and said, we'd like you to present the idea in our Los Angeles office, where the head of VR is, because we're interested in the idea. And then after that meeting, they wanted to collaborate. So we worked together on the piece.
Wow. And one thing that I think it's amazing on the piece is that the facts on the audio and on the video are connected, like when it's shaking and when the resolution gets worse.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something really important about that. Now, at the time that we created that there weren't many music experiences in VR. The ones that I had seen were basically taking an existing stereo music track and putting it into 360. Maybe there was more emphasis on the visuals rather than the sound. And I think my approach was different. I wanted to create a music VR experience from the ground up, starting with sound. So it's not like, we have a visual and we can just add the sound to it. It's like, no, sound is the starting point. So yeah, we recorded all of the sound in this studio, actually, which is a small residential studio. We had the beatboxer Reaps One come in and record all of his parts, and we created it. And whilst we were creating it, we were thinking about it in a very, very visual way. So, let's create this section of sound and imagine that we're in this very big space in the desert. And then we move to a small space in a closet or in an underground car park, which is, really big sound. And how does that environment affect how we compose the piece? And then how does that affect the visuals? And I co-directed this piece with Gawain Lydiard, who was head of visual effects at the Mill. And it was a very, like you said, it was like this dovetailing process. So he worked on the visuals at the same time as we were working on the audio. And the two things had to exist exactly at the same time.
So you told me that everything was recorded in 1 week, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you just gave me some information about the process, but can you tell me the process from beginning to the end? Like, how was the whole process?
Yeah, sure. So once we'd agreed to work together, firstly, we didn't really have much budget for this. So both teams were working kind of for free. So it was agreed that, you know, I was responsible for all the sound and the Mill would do all the visual production. And so really the key was pre-production. And for all of the VR and 360 video projects I've worked on, I think that remains true. You have to be very, very clear about what you intend to do and how you want to do it. And you just need to prepare and do as much pre-production as possible. So we got to a stage quite quickly where I had created the music with the beatboxer Reaps One. I called Gawain into the studio and we both listened to what we had and imagined what the visuals would be. And then there was a very organized process of planning each shot. So it's like, right, we're going to start in a studio, then we're going to go out into these palm trees, and then we're going to be in an underground car park. And because we didn't really have much time or money, we had to get all of these shots done in, I think it was 3 days in the end. So we spent 2 days in the desert in Southern California. So we were in Joshua Tree, we were in Palm Springs, and then we came to Los Angeles to do all of the urban environments. And it was a fascinating process. That there was, some people had said, you know, did you use a green screen, you know, and just, you have these environments, you can just put the performer in there. But there was something important for us to kind of keep it real. So to have the performer in the space. So we didn't use any green screen, but we did shoot all of the environments empty. And then we had the performer enter the environment. And we didn't use a traditional 360 camera. We used a single DSLR with a fisheye lens. And that means that if we're pointing the camera in one direction, we can still use lighting and we can use sound, like we can use a boom shotgun microphone to capture the performance. And then in post-production, the visual effects team were able to stitch that to the rest of the environment. So it was quite a clever approach, I think, to be able to have control over the subject, be able to light the subject and record the sound, but then give a very seamless experience. When you watch it back, it just feels like you're there.
And what was the biggest challenge that you faced on the production?
I mean, it was a huge challenge just finding the locations. Like a lot of the locations we had to steal. So we just had to like turn up. One of them was like a road leading into a Joshua Tree. And we just said, okay, this looks like a good spot. And we just stopped and got all the equipment and got everything done. And then maybe there was loads of tourists coming in on that road. So we had to stop and like mark the positions where we were, like go off the side of the road, come back, start again. So logistically, it was very difficult. As I said, we didn't have budget, so we couldn't, you know, lock down all the locations. We just had to go in there and do what we could while we were there. And then some of the night shoots were quite difficult. There was one shot that we weren't able to do. And it was really, the visual effects team were talking about wanting to try this special effects shot, a little bit like the film Inception, where you have the whole world like folding in. There was a way of trying to capture that, but in the end, it was just one shot too many. we were trying to do so much, and that would involve like a big crane and everything else. So we didn't manage to get that. But yeah, the challenges were, I think, mainly around the visual capture, because we already had the audio to play with, and then there were separate challenges for me in post-production trying to mix it. That was a whole other process.
Oh. And how do you think bands can explore this kind of narrative?
That's a really interesting question. And I think, I mean, I hope that the video provides some reference or inspiration somehow, or a starting point for other bands or musicians to think about how they might approach working in 3D. But I think it's really just to consider what it means to be immersed in a performance. And for me, when I'm seeing a performer, maybe a live venue, it's not just about seeing the performer, it's about being in a physical space, perhaps with other people, what time of day it is. Yeah, like so much about the location informs how you feel about the performance and how you relate to the performer. And I find that really interesting. So I think if you're going to do a 360 video or a VR video, you have to remember that you're not just creating the performance, you're creating the whole environment. So what environment would work really well for the performance, visually, but also acoustically? You know, we had one of our shots in a church, which was very beautiful. And that part of the song, we decided to sing more of we create like a choir effect. So it kind of mimicked the idea of being in this church. And yeah, I mean, it's worth saying that when we went into making this piece, we didn't have one clear goal. It was really an experiment, and it was seeing how far can you go before it doesn't work anymore. Because at the time, I'm going slightly off topic here, but at the time, you know, lots of people said that when you are in VR, you need to land in an environment and give the viewer maybe 20 seconds to get used to where they are and feel comfortable. And we said, well, do we think that that is a strict rule, or can we play with that? So if you see the video, the changes start happening really fast in the end. Yeah. So it's like new place, new place, new place. And we were happy for that to fail. We were happy and we've had some feedback where people were like, yeah, I didn't enjoy it. You know, at the end, it was just too much. And like, I didn't know where I was. And that's okay too. So it's a learning experience. Like what works for some people might not work for others. So yeah, so anyone else who's creating, hopefully they can use this as a bit of a reference to say, oh, maybe I could try this, or I want to avoid that. But yes, thinking about the whole experience, the whole environment, we're creating new worlds. So that's, it needs to be all thought about.
And you are specialized on binaural audio and like you work a lot with VR, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what are your next projects? What you working on right now?
Well, actually, I've just accepted a new job working for Madison Square Garden. The events company who have, you know, the big venues and the Madison Square Garden venue, they also have a number of other venues, and they're building one in Las Vegas, called the Sphere. And it's worth checking out. It's a really incredible project. It's going to be a 20,000 capacity venue. And it's a big dome structure. So I think it's the biggest dome structure, kind of live event space ever built, and it's halfway through construction at the moment. But yeah, I'm the audio supervisor there, so I'm taking my experience in VR and taking it more to kind of live venues now, where we'll be working with 3D sound and some very incredible new sound technology to be able to impact audiences and give people an immersive experience in a kind of live context. So that's actually going to be my next project, and I think VR will actually play a part of that. You know, VR is really helpful in understanding what the experience might be like. So we're using VR as part of our building process. But yeah, I think the opportunity to learn in VR has been totally invaluable for me, and I hope to be able to use it as I go on through this job and whatever happens next.
It's great to hear that VR and 360 video is trying to reproduce the real world, but in this case, you're saying that VR and 360 video are influencing the real world, so it's going to the opposite direction.
Yeah, and I've always loved you know, artistic disciplines that inform each other. You know, and in that way, like VR is really essential. I mean, you're finding now that VR is playing a more important role in architecture. So you could put someone in VR and totally simulate a new environment that you might want to build. So it's really helpful for that. And we've seen, you know, natural environments influence VR as well. You know, there's a lot of amazing kind of healing experiences where you can transport yourself into a forest or a beach or sort of like some kind of relaxing environment, whatever it is. So I think they can all influence each other. And I think some of the best artwork comes when people bring their own experiences to it. It's like what really interested me about VR and 360 video is everybody had a very artistic sensibility to the medium. But everyone was coming from a different place. Some were just artists, some were into the technology, some were into sound, but everybody shared quite a experimental and pioneering spirit. Like everyone was like, I want to try something new. So I think the idea of collaboration is super, super important. That's what my experience was 5 years ago when I started. Everyone just wanted to work together and try things. So I think the more that happens, you know, it will increase the quality of the experiences.
You just put in words what makes VR interesting for me. I never, like, I was, okay, I like to experiment. I like to experiment with other people, but you just like describe it in the perfect way. What's the...
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've all experienced that, whether we are conscious of it or not. Like, it just feels like a really interesting space to work in. And I think I looked a little bit deeper and I was like, well, why is this? And I think it's a new format. So it's attracting very curious minds. And I think that's a commonality that we all share. That's really great.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was amazing talking to you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, thank you. I'm really keen to see how the festivals go and some of the other work that you have there. And thank you for getting more exposure on this medium. I think it's really exciting, really important. And, you know, it's also important to say, you know, that I think the work that's been done in VR, it gives people this sense of immersion. Some really great things have happened with that. We've seen a lot of charity films where people can be put in situations where they can kind of empathize with an important cause. So we shouldn't forget that as well as being able to do clever things with sound and visuals, there's also like real world issues that can that we can help, I think, through this medium. So it's beneficial in lots of different ways.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Angelo. Good luck, and hope to speak to you again soon.